G'day guys and welcome, my name is Michael and I am the DeadAussieGamer and welcome to not a reaction video to Taking 20's Why Am I Quitting Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Joining me today, of course, from across the pond, which is actually a British slang, so I don't know why I'm saying it, because I mean everywhere is really across the pond from Australia, is none other than the ever delightful DM Jared from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gamed. G'day Jared.
How's it going?
Going well, mate. Well, I'm going to start by saying the obvious. Have you seen the video?
I have seen the video. I think it's impossible not to see the video if you're part of this.
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, like Cody is a fantastic person, a massive influencer, and his video is going viral very, very quickly. And there are so many videos out there right now reacting to his statement of quitting Pathfinder. Now, there are definitely people on both sides of the fence. People who are saying that, yeah, no, Cody's right, waving that banner around. And other people who have turned around and condemned or otherwise, critiqued the fact he has decided, or why he has decided this. So, rather than doing a reaction video, because both of us have seen this video, we are going to break down what exactly Cody's saying during this video, or at least what we think he's saying during the video. Of course, we're going to share our opinions on the matter, but that's not what the focus of this is, Just with so many people reacting to it, I mean, it's great that everyone's got opinions. That's fantastic. But I want to dig deep into Cody's opinions. Why is he quitting Pathfinder? That's the goal for today. So, without any further ado, let's watch the video and let's break down what's happening in Cody's video. All right, so here we go. Of course, Cody, very photogenic. I love him. He's great. Did I tell you I got to meet Cody once?
Did you really?
I did. I got to meet him at Gen Con 2019. So, absolutely fantastic person. And anything I say in this video is out of love. Because, yeah. All right. Here we go. Nope. That didn't work. Oh, God. There we go.
No.
I think I was wrong. It happens. And as I've gotten a little older and hopefully a little wiser, I realized that cutting your losses is always the better option than to dig in and continue to lie to yourself.
Before we get too far in, I think that's great advice just in general, right? That's great advice in general. If you're playing a game or a campaign that you don't like, and you just sit there and dig your teeth in because it's like, yeah, I'm playing a game. Or if you're playing a character that everyone hates and you dig in, it's a terrible thing. What he's doing here, I think, is he is acknowledging that he had dug his heels in at some point or another and that he's, removing that restriction, which is great. Do you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm actually going through something similar in my own sphere. So,
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Well, do you want to share? You can share.
One of my players is currently playing a druid in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and they find that the class in the AP we're currently running doesn't match. So they've asked to, retire that character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and that's good. I mean, if you're not having fun, why keep playing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
But I think I'm ready to admit it now publicly. I don't think I like Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And more importantly, I think I finally understand what it is that I don't like. I have to say something here that I think is important. I am biased. I have been biased. I've always been a little biased towards Paizo because, frankly, they've always treated me very, very well, and I mean that. I mean, as an example, I sit here with 250,000 plus subs after...
Okay, so a couple things here. Number one is, yes, he is biased. That's one of the big things. He makes a lot of, Paizo-related materials. I love how there's that little flex of I have this many people. This is the value of what I have. In my opinion, this moment here is not a statement on his opinions on Paizo. This is a statement on his channel. This is I'm a big deal, by the way. In case you don't know who I am, in case you've never come across my channel, in case this video has not gone viral, this is the machine that I have behind me. Having met Cody personally, I find that there are people who like they're on two sides of the fence with how Taking 20 goes. Either they think it's so business orientated because Cody plays the game. He plays social media, the money, the numbers, the view counts and stuff like that, and he does it better than most people in the industry. For me, this is a moment where he is now acknowledging, I loved this game. I am very, very biased towards Paizo, but so something big is coming. He knows that what he's about to say might jeopardize those numbers, might jeopardize what he's put on the line. So for me, this is an affirmation, I guess, of his own personal opinion to make sure that, yeah, you know, this is what I want to say. What are your thoughts? What do you think Cody's trying to say here?
You know, I agree with that. I think it's, like you said, it is a flex. I have 51, so I can say whatever I wish.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a flex. But I'm glad he talked about his channel and said, "Hey, listen, I know something's gonna happen from this. Either I'm gonna get blackballed by a ton of people, or this is gonna, ruin my relationship with people I know." Because when you're as large as Cody is, and even, I mean, with you, I got to DM for Eric Mona, like, because you have a relationship with these people, you build a relationship. It's hard. You're gonna say something that's gonna hurt someone's feelings, and that's a hard thing to do.
Oh yeah, especially in an industry like this where everything is so personal. We live and die by the relationships that we make in this industry, and yeah, no, absolutely, Cody is very much aware of this going into this video.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep watching.
After years of being a brand advocate for D&D, and Wizards of the Coast could not care less than they do. I mean that. They literally won't even send me a new book.
Hashtag send Cody books.
I mean, even with Tasha's, you could see that they sent out books early to dozens of Twitter peeps with a few thousand Twitter followers. Now, before people lose their cool, I'm not saying that I'm some savant because of my subscriber count. I'm saying Wizards clearly is sending out books to influencers, and I ain't on that list, if you get my drift.
Yeah, but that's the point, right? Okay, so again, a lot of people are under the impression that influencers like Cody, like, a whole bunch of these big names, get paid copious amounts of money to talk about products. When in actuality, what tends to happen more often than not is people get given gifts or things or free stuff in order to talk or chat about it. It's kind of what most people would consider the barest minimum to establish a relationship between a game publishing company and a content creator. Now, I'm not a content creator. I mean, I kind of am. I am a performer. I'm an entertainer, right? So if people want me to entertain, usually they ask me to go perform. That's how it works. Cody does reviews. Cody does breakdowns. Cody dives deep into the systems and settings. If he does not have that content, he will not do it. If Cody has to pay for that content, Cody's not going to do it. Because it's all about those numbers. It's all about making sure that it's like, well, yes, if you want access to the resources that I have for my influence, then you've got to give me something in return. So what here is, I mean, as much as he is now just taking a dig at Wizards of the Coast, which, look, I've worked for Wizards of the Coast. I've got to say, it's such a big company, and it's very easy to get lost in it. They do tend to not, they tend to blinker themselves and miss the relationship aspect of the business, and that's a bit of a shame. But Paizo does not. Paizo is very, very personal, and I think that's what this is supposed to be saying, is that, hey, this is the relationship I have with Paizo, this is the relationship I have with Wizards of the Coast, which is arguably supposed to be a bigger, more powerhouse company, which is why Paizo is currently preferred.
Yeah, I agree. I think, hashtag send Cody books is the way to go with this one.
That's it. We should get that trending. Hashtag send Cody books. Don't worry, Cody.
Too.
We'll send you books.
I got you.
Meanwhile, Paizo has personally mailed me tons of books and continues to send me PDFs of their new products. James Sutter, the lead writer for Starfinder, came onto my channel at just a couple thousand subs here before they even changed the Starfinder logo from teal, that original teal that it was, to the orange it is now.
Hold up. Did you know the logo changed? I didn't know the logo changed. See?
I did not.
Yeah. Oh wow.
My
Okay,
mind
fair
when
enough.
he said that.
Was even part of the Starfinder premiere, which is something that blows my mind. And from Aaron to Jason, Keeley that is, to Owen and James and Dan before they left, and even Bowman and Mona were super friendly to me.
Now, when you have to name drop, right, you got to make sure that drop is hard, right? Because everyone waits for that bass, you know?
Yeah.
No. I think what's happening here is, as like I said, as much as Cody is about trying to let you guys know that, yeah, his channel's big, his channel's wide and varied. This, for me, says he is talking to these people right now. Right? Like, those are the people he's built relationships with in Paizo. These are the people that he is saying, I want you to know that I think well of you, that I have a respect for you as people who I've worked with. That's what I'm kind of picking up from this. And I can also vouch for it too. I mean, again, you've worked with Eric Mona, and so have I. Aaron Shanks and a bunch of others are just among the friendliest people you're ever bound to meet, you know. Although, that being said, I think Jason Bullman doesn't like me, but that's a whole other story for another video. I like him. I love Jason Bullman. I greatly admire him, but yeah, I don't think he likes me very much. All right. Thoughts on this a little bit?
I'm going to refer back to what I said previously, where he is saying, like, I know these people, and I'm about to say some harsh things, because you already saw the thumbnail, so you know it's coming.
Yeah,
and I think it's a bit of an apology.
Well, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not it's like an apology, but you know, like, I'm sorry, but you know, grit your teeth. I'm gonna punch you in the face. So let's see that punch coming.
When I went up and bothered them at Gen Con, their entire staff is frankly made up of awesome people who have always treated me very, very well. And so, why am I telling you guys this? Because I think context matters. I like Paizo. I loved Pathfinder First Edition. I really enjoyed the little bit of Starfinder that I actually got to play. I want Paizo.
Cody, if you're watching this, you contact me. I will run you through a game of Starfinder. Okay? Just call me up. I'll do it. Jared will do it. We'll both do it.
Yeah.
To do well. I am, without a doubt, a little biased. But, and this is a big but, I'm done. At least for the moment with Pathfinder. I really thought I was going to do a bunch of coverage on the channel for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I thought, oh great, I can do class videos and builds and this and that and this, and I just didn't. And I didn't fully understand why I was so disinterested in making those videos.
Sorry, I do want to take a quick moment here to pause. Cody did not do those videos. Very, very true. Cody did very, very early on a bunch of videos just as a broad sweeping review of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I think he also did a comparison of Pathfinder 2nd Edition to Dungeons & Dragons, like pros and cons and what he liked. And I think he did fall on the, hey, I preferred Pathfinder 2nd Edition at the time. But of course, context is very important, and knowing that that was what he thought then and what he thinks now is different is very important. I would also like to say to any of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition fans, if you have not done so yet, go subscribe to our friend NoNat. NoNat1s is a awesome YouTuber, and he has a whole bunch of videos breaking down classes and combat and a whole bunch of stuff for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. By far one of like the best resources I've used so far in regards to 2nd Edition. Besides Jared, of course. Jared's awesome. Look at him. Look at him in his face. Okay.
And even the videos I did make about Pathfinder, like my kind of popular comparison of Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and Pathfinder 2e, even in that, I was still fairly critical of the system. I've been running a Patreon campaign through Age of Ashes for Pathfinder 2e for an entire year now, or coming up on a year here in just a few weeks. And I finally understand why. I think I understand why. I don't care for the system. For me, it can all be summed up with 3 words. Illusion of choice. The one thing I loved about Pathfinder 2e was its combat. I love the idea of 3 actions, the way that spell casting with multiple actions work. I actually liked the active defending and the way the attack of opportunity were handled and changed from 3.5 in Pathfinder 1st Edition. I loved the idea that I could make 3 shoves in a turn if I wanted, because that's how the action economy worked. And to be honest, at lower levels, the issues that eventually creep into the game aren't there yet. At lower levels, the combat still feels maybe a little bit frustrating with the multi-attack penalty, which I did mention, but that's about it. Everything else still feels pretty decent, if I'm being honest.
Okay, what are your thoughts on what he said here?
So, I'm just going to critique one of the things he did say.
Sure.
And he said and this is just going from being part of the community, and I'm sure we've all seen it. People picked out that one statement he said of the illusion of choice, and they've run that into the ground. He's right on certain of these points. With the concept of the multiple attack penalty and stuff like that, early on, it's not as terrible. He's right now just venting out his frustration. I think what we're seeing is there were a lot of edits. He's a really great editor, or whoever he has editing. You don't really notice them, but if you've ever sat up at like 2 a.m. just editing a video, you see the quick cuts.
Oh no, I'm a film major. That was actually okay. To be fair, this is a separate thing. Sorry, Cody, we're gonna critique you now. Taking 20. And Dawnforge Cast, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that made it very hard for me to watch their videos early on was because I was a film major, and those cuts hurt my soul. They did. Yeah. They were very difficult.
Yeah. So he's still cutting, and I think he's ranting right now. And what you're seeing is a man frustrated, and
especially look at that. Look at his face right there. It's like,
yeah, that's a great stop.
It's up to hear what you and your Pathfinder. I'm gonna come for
you. It's very intense. I like the intensity, but that's what you want to see. Is you want to see that intensity. You want to see a man, or and Cody, if I'm saying this wrong, but you want to see someone. This is coming from a place of love.
Passion.
You want to get into, passion.
No, absolutely, I agree. I also agree. I think that there is definitely a frustration that has mounted, but it is definitely kind of like I imagine a straw that's broken the camel's back. He's mentioned, of course, the game that he's been playing for a year, and in my, having, again, we've already watched this video, knowing, of course, what's to come, he's laid the blame at the feet of this one particular game, which for me, I think is where a lot of the people who are right now reacting to this video and making those critiques, that's where they seem to be coming from. They seem to be coming from, he just had a bad game, and didn't deal with it. And, look, there's a lot of things that go into that, and there's a lot of things to unpack. I don't think it's as clear cut as Cody was not dealing with, power gaming players properly, or power gaming players, kind of ruined the game for him. I don't think it's clear cut as that. I think there is definitely something more. The idea of the whole illusion of choice thing is an interesting concept, because I understand exactly what it is. If you played games like even pre-Pathfinder 1st Edition, Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 was a great example of the illusion of choice. Things like magic items, for example, were a huge culprit of that. There was, of course, the Super 6 items you always saw players having. You had a belt or a headband for one of your stats. You always had a ring of protection. You always had a cloak of resistance. You always had, it was just always there. In the same way, that is an illusion of choice. You think what you actually have is tomes worth of items and artifacts, when really all you do in order to try and keep relevant to the game system is you use those things that boost up those core mechanics or those core stats. I think what he's alluding to here is that same feeling rising up to what should effectively be a very versatile game. At least that's what I'm picking up he means by this at this point.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, push the wrong button.
But as the players begin to level, patterns emerge. And when I say patterns, I mean cookie cutter patterns, regardless of how the combats begin to take shape, regardless of the variance in enemies and backdrops and surprise ambushes or dockside brawls or dragon totems out in the jungle. The players all do the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. Why? Because that's how they built their characters. And I came up with a great analogy when talking to my brother about it. Pathfinder 2e plays like an MMO with rotations. If anyone watching this has ever played World of Warcraft,
he said something interesting there about rotations. Now, have you done many MMOs and stuff like that, Jared?
Yes, I have.
Cool.
The
So,
World of Warcraft.
can you run us through what exactly he means by rotations for those in the audience who might not necessarily know what rotations are?
Sure. Rotations are you will have a number of skills, and you start it's kind of like a chain reaction. So you press either you'll have a macro keyword or whatever, and you'll press number 5, and then you press 3, and then you press 2, and then you press 1, and then you go back to 5. And that's the rotation. It just keeps happening over and over and over again because that's the most optimal way to play that.
Absolutely. It's all based upon things like cooldowns, recharge times, maximizing your buffs, etc. There is a numerical equation that goes into this rotation, and that's what Cody's talking about now. He's talking about the idea that in the way that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is laid out is that there is an optimal rotation for each of the classes, and he is just seeing lots of repetition for that. Now, before we get too deep into it, I want to go with what is bad about a rotation to you, Jared? Like, if you were to see a rotation in a role-playing game rather than an MMO, what is the negative impact on this? What do you feel is a bad feature of that?
So I'm going to do 2 things, and then I'm going to steal a little bit of time with a personal story.
Yeah, go on.
So 2 things. One, when I see rotations happening, that makes me feel like I'm failing as a DM. I haven't given you enough, like he says, as a backdrop. I haven't given you enough scenery. I haven't painted a well enough picture for you to want to engage with this world. So I feel bad as a DM because that means I'm boring you to some point. And then the second thing is that means to me that the player is either A, having fun because they've figured out their class, and that might lead to boredom because I figured out everything my class could do. So I'm now bored of this. I'm scared my player is going to be bored because they just keep doing the same 3 things over and over again. Which now leads me to my quick story. I promise to be super quick. So if you go back and you check out my podcast, I had a player who was playing a ranger, and within, I want to say 7 to 8 episodes, you will hear his rotation in combat. Every combat, it's the same rotation. We played all the way from level 1 to level 16, and it's at level 16 is the exact same rotation. Didn't matter what magic items I threw at him. Didn't matter what was going on. It was the same rotation. And I asked him, and I said, "Hey, man, what's going on? Like, are you not getting enough out of your class?" And he said, "No, I am. This is just the best way to do it for me." He is a min-maxer, and if he comments in this and he says he's not, he is a liar, and I will point that out. But I understand exactly where Cody's coming from right now with the rotation.
So, yeah, my version, I kind of agree. I think the idea of rotation in the same way, I do tend to blame myself first, and that's only because I feel like I do that a lot as a GM. I'm always critiquing myself, and, you know, as a very good friend of mine on another channel, the Dreaded GM, likes to say, we are often our greatest critics. So sometimes you need people to be your biggest fans. That's an important lesson. And I think for me, looking at this and saying like, oh yes, you know, it was Power Gamers, or yes, it was the GM. What needs to happen is there is no lesson, there is no class. You go to school about how to roleplay creativity. You know what I mean? You just get given a book filled with words and told, yeah, have a go. And if you are surrounded by people who, roleplay in a very particular way, you, regardless of what you might have normally preferred, you will follow those suits and those patterns as well. And if you find a pattern that is working and successful, there needs to be some sort of incentive or something to pull you off of that. And I think that's one of those things, is this idea that failure is bad, failure is terrible, therefore I will keep that rotation. I play so many games a week, and everyone knows this. It's concerning health-wise. No, I do. And one of the big things I tell people is that I have, repetition is one of those things that I had to just get over. Because if I couldn't get over it, I'd burn out. I have kids who repeat their actions over and over and over again. I have, fighters are a great culprit of this, and they've always been a culprit of this. Let's not sugarcoat things, right? Ever since, AD&D, what does the fighter do? I go up to it and I smack it with my sword. What do you do next? I smack it, but a little harder. There's only so much variety that you get thrown into combat, right? But I think what happens is when you tell the player, all of a sudden it's like, actually, as you swing your sword, you slash into the wall and the rocks begin to crumble. It's like, oh, hey, I can attack the wall. I can give it a new target. I can maybe do something new. That's just something born of repetition. So if we don't have that, if we don't repeat ourselves or notice these patterns, we never grow. We never, we never change. That's the nature of it, is we have to notice those things and, of course, adapt. In this case, Cody's adapted away from the system, which might actually work for Cody. I mean, again, we'll have to see by the end of the video. So let's continue.
After Star Wars The Old Republic, you'll know exactly what I mean by this. If you haven't, what I mean is there is an optimal set of actions that you need to do over and over and over again to perform well. For my
slight addendum on that, I wouldn't say to perform well. I would say to perform exemplary. For me, performing well in combat means you've spent a quarter of your resources. That means 25% of your hit points are down. You've used at least some of your spells or your, one-time per use abilities, etc. Something has given and you've sacrificed something to overcome the encounter. That is performing well. Performing exemplary, and this is the common misconception that you always need to perform your best, is no damage at all. I haven't spent any of my high-level spells, and it is completely and utterly dead in round 2 or 3, or round 1 if you're really good. I don't think that's well. I think that's exemplary, and I think, yes, you need the optimum path to perform exemplary.
Swashbuckler player, it's tumble through, panache, sneak attack, confident finisher, over and over and over again. For the ranger, it's hunt prey, hunted shot, throw in a third shot that usually misses. My druid...
Was that the rotation your ranger used?
Yeah, that's the exact rotation.
There you go.
Player just this week, my druid player just this week asked me if they could go back and retcon some of their character abilities because they were getting bored just turning into dinosaurs and dragons to bite and claw things.
Okay, call me crazy, but if you get bored turning into dinosaurs and dragons, there needs to be something wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. In combat, you turn into the most effective things and get your head away. But, it ignores the fact you're a bloody dragon or a freaking dinosaur, For me, one of the big things that I like to play around with that I think a lot of people don't use often enough is weight, right? Mm-hmm. The thing is that there is a sheer weight of the dinosaur that is actually listed under its stats. Now I'm asking you, Jared, if a human being, right, let's say a regular human farmer, right, was in combat with us. It was a bandit. Cool. I want to step on the bandit, right? This might be a slam attack. This might require me to do stuff. And then if I decide that I'm going to stand on one foot while standing on them, right? Now, a dinosaur, for example, is roughly 8,000 pounds. What are you going to have happen to that commoner when I lean on that one foot?
You're going to hear a pop sound.
Right.
because they're squished.
And yes, there are rules, of course, of like, oh,
Yeah.
but that's not how D&D works. You need to do this stuff. But the thing is it's only because you're not acknowledging the stats that aren't related to direct positives and negatives. There are so many different things that involve with stuff. You know, space, size, girth, weight, all these elements are, again, like I said, they're not taught that these are things you should also be taking into account. But c'est la vie, as it were.
Over and over again. I mean, the druid. Historically, which is to say since 3rd edition D&D back in like what, 2000-ish, has been one of the most versatile classes in the game. Here we are 20 years later.
Would you agree with that?
I do, but now here's a knock, and I apologize. This actually is not a knock against Cody. This is a
Take your knock.
against...
Stop apologizing. I'm an unapologetic bastard.
So, I think 2nd edition, their druid, the ones they've put out so far, there's only 4 of them, right? It's very limited, right? It's very limited. The 5th edition druid, in Dungeons and Dragons is way worse. I hate playing that, and I like playing druids. I actually play druids a lot. It's very limited. I understand what he is saying. It is very versatile. You could change shape. In 2nd edition, you're a full caster. You have a full array of spells. So you are. I don't understand why the druid's not having fun. It's just me. Maybe maybe again they might be seeing, it might be player envy, right? So I see the barbarian dealing 5,000.
I'm gonna say it. It might just be that Cody's not fun. No, I'm joking. I'm sure Cody's fun, but there are lots of reasons. There are lots of reasons. I mean, even outside of game, there are plenty of reasons why someone might not have fun at a game. You know, absolutely. I've had people who have had things happen in their day-to-day life and family life. Even you know, ironically, adding more games to your itinerary also impacts that. As someone who obviously plays so many games, I try so hard not to play the same character at the same time while I'm role-playing on a ton of different games. Because if I'm playing a rogue in 2 different games, I'm going to burn out of wanting to play a rogue in both of those games. So it could also, I mean, without any context here, this druid player might be playing a druid on another table, or might be playing something animal-based, or might simply be watching a TV show that reminds him constantly of his character. Whatever it is, what I'm saying is that there might be a lot more factors than simply a druid is boring.
Yeah. Later, in Pathfinder 2nd edition, the illusion of choice is so overwhelming in a system built around combat, let's be honest, it is.
What do you think?
All role-playing systems are built around combat.
I disagree!
No, well, okay. So yes, like there is.
I love how quickly you backed off from that. Come on, conviction.
Sorry.
No, Michael.
No.
Stuff you.
Because I made a broad stroke statement, but the 2 big, right? Like, so if you're playing any adventure, like fantasy adventure, role-playing game, it's built around combat. Just it's the nature of the beast. There are the other role-playing games that are not built around combat, and those are fun too. I'm not gonna knock them. I'm sure they have. I've never actually gotten to play them. I've been dying to play like a not combat focused role play game, but I've never had the chance to. So it's more on me.
Well, if you ever get the chance to, the Steven Universe powered by the Apocalypse game, definitely a very non-combat game.
Oh, what?
So, yeah,
I didn't even know they made Steven Universe.
They did. It was I played it a couple of times. It was a lot of fun. I had to run a game for an LGBTIQA community group, and we played that. And it was a lot of fun. It was all narrative. It was like combat almost did not exist. And in fact, you actually had more stats for like trying to like use the magic of like reason and diplomacy and love and all that to try and convince people to back out of stuff. Even when you were fighting the cursed gems and stuff. Anyway, I digress. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this. Yeah. I think Pathfinder, if I'm being deadly honest, Pathfinder 2nd edition was built on the back of archetypes, in my opinion. right? Like everything screams to me of archetypes, right? If you think about Pathfinder First Edition, right? They had race traits, right? So you had your base race, then you had the various traits that you would associate it with. You would then have classes. 3.5 had classes, but then you would have prestige classes, which effectively were replaced in Pathfinder from 3.5 with archetypes, where instead of replacing instead of like working towards a class and then taking an advanced class, you would be able to interlock and interchange these alternate traits as well. More and more of this stuff made its way into Pathfinder First Edition, and when Second Edition came by, it's almost like, if you really stop and think about it, all the feats work exactly like a polished version of the archetype system. Your ancestries and all the ancestry feats that go along with it. You know, where are the racial traits? It's like, well, no, it's basically an archetype for your race. Your skills, exact same thing. You know, now it's almost like an archetype for the skill set that your character has. Your class has now archetypes and stuff. So, and I think we were talking about this earlier on. Maybe it was you and me, I can't remember, but about the fact that this druid may simply have not utilized archetypes in order to get that versatility from their class. That could possibly be it as well, because yes, combat is a big part of role-playing games. I'm not going to argue that. But I think Pathfinder 2nd Edition was built on the back of versatility through focus on their archetype system, because archetypes were what made 1st Edition just so damn good. You could play 4 barbarians, and through use of archetypes, none of them would be the same. But that's not necessarily translated well into 2nd Edition.
Yes. Especially the dedication system. It limits you a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that it's quite literally boring my player. And before you dismiss what I'm saying here as hyperbole, let me give you some additional context. Back at the end of Book 2 of Age of Ashes, my players TPK'd. Something I haven't had happen in a game in 22 plus years.
Hold on a second. That's a long time to not TPK. I feel bad. I feel like if I haven't gone at least a year without TPKing a group, my players just sort of clench. You know, they're like, hey, it's someone's birthday recently. Yeah, it is. That means a year's gone by. Yeah? Has Michael TPK'd anyone? No. Oh my god. 22 years without a TPK. Cody does mention that he has had deaths in his group, but a TPK is quite a thing. But, jokes aside, TPKs for me are not a what do you call it? It's not like a mainstay or a criticism of stuff. If you TPK, for me, that's just a bow on the end of your story. But he's talking about it, especially in the next little bit here. He's talking about it in such a negative way, like I TPK'd. I shouldn't TPK. That I don't agree with that. What about you, Jared?
I always say this: if the idea of death for your player, I'm sorry, for your character, not for your player, for your character,
grasp the mortal coil from your player.
If the idea of death isn't there, and the players will start to walk all over you. I had a DM who would not let a player die. Actually, wouldn't let me die, and I started doing irrational and silly things. That should be a part of the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think what happens here is what's called the illusion of consequence. The idea that your characters are immune. But I think as I mentioned, I think he's not really, he doesn't shy away from killing players. I think just killing all the players kind of grinds an adventure to a halt. But I've had TPKs. Fun fact, I've just TPK'd a bunch of kids at my youth center. Yeah, we're playing Hell's Rebels. And
I love that one.
Yeah, and one of the major villains, Nox, ended up killing everyone. And I want to point out, I have a table of 8 players, and they just didn't happen, right? Like Nox, like everything in my table pretty much just gets the advanced template, so they get a +2 to some stuff. So this isn't a difficult fight, but Nox wiped them out. The only person who survived was a person who ran and had to retire from the game because Nox saw their face, and the whole idea of rebellion didn't happen. Their bodies were then paraded in the streets. That was a whole thing. But the new characters that came in were either relatives of people who were killed. There were people who, sort of took over after hearing about their noble sacrifice, And all of the guys that came back in after the TPK were people who were almost more invested in the story than the people who had originally died. So a TPK isn't necessarily going to grind your game to a halt. It depends on how you handle it. If you turn and just push the reset button and so go, yep, cool, that didn't happen, we're going to keep going. Or if you say, forget about the TPK, you're a bunch of new adventurers just coming into the story at this time, you're missing out on an opportunity to react to the TPK, Yeah. And I've even killed a couple more times after that. One of the guys, he had a character who was a tailor, had a family and a wife and a child and all this sort of stuff. He died, and then he played like an adopted child of that character, like a friend of the family who came in and said, "Don't worry, I'll pick up the mantle and I'll do stuff." And then he died, or she died. And it was really funny because just before the game where she died, she went to talk to the family of his first character. And was like saying, a lot of, this, that, and the other. And the wife was like, no, that's how I lost my husband. You can't go as well. I can't lose you. And then, they had this moment of like, yeah, well, then hold on to this. I'll come back for it. I promise. And then one of the paladins, a monk came up and was like, yes, no, don't worry. I'll bring her back safely. Dead. And then not only did he die, she died, the monk retired the character because they didn't want to go and talk to the wife.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, these are kids. These are little kids, right? So you
Yeah.
have great games that can come up from TPKs, right? So yeah, just, again, for you guys, because this video is about you guys. This isn't just us reacting to Cody. This is just, this is a casual, nice chill chat. And we're about halfway too as well. If you guys want, go grab a drink, hit the pause button. Hydration is very important as well. Yeah, you don't need to watch this whole thing in one binge watch.
No, please don't.
Behind the screen. I've had plenty of character death, but never a complete wipe before. And so this druid player is already bored of his character just between the levels of 9 to 12. That's how little choice they feel they have after initiative has been rolled. That is staggering, guys. That is staggering. We've moved from tier 2 into tier 3 play, and the player's character doesn't even have enough in the tank to keep them interested.
So real quick, what is the difference between tier 2 and tier 3 play?
Tier 2 is more like difficulty, as I understand it. You're going.
So it's like how fast you level and how
hard everything is. That's really it. I guess that it would be like when you're scrolling on the like if you're playing Dark Souls. You go to like insane mode. That's kind of what's happening here. So tier 2 to tier 3, you're just changing how you level and stuff like that.
Now this might just be a speculation, and I want everyone to understand it's just speculation. But it feels as though things were going so rhythmically that Cody, as a GM, decided to up the difficulty to try and encourage or to force the players to alter their repetition, right? I think that's a terrible idea. And the reason I think it's a terrible idea is because it enters what's known as the arms race with the players. If things get more difficult, right, then the rotation becomes more necessary. It becomes more necessary to play optimally, to do the best you can, to be the best you can, to do all the things that are efficient, because now you have no breathing room to do otherwise. If I were to say something, what I would have done, and this is only, again, if I understand it correctly, that 2 to 3 is an increase in difficulty, is I would have gone from 2 to 1, right? Drop down the difficulty, make it easier, make it simpler. And that way, there's less pressure for them to always do the same rotation. They can do the fun and silly stuff, and they wouldn't be penalized. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm fighting a goblin, I have 10 hit points. If a goblin hits me, it's going to do 8 damage. It's like, you know what? I can't really afford to let that goblin hit me once. Whereas if it's like, goblin's hitting me for 2 damage, I've got 5 hits in me. Let's be silly. I'm going to grab one by the scruff of its neck, put it in a barrel, and throw it down a river, right? You are more inclined to do that if you understand and know that you have, a relative amount of safety and freedom. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. especially in like the tiers of play that he's speaking on, they so like at tier 3 your character starts to get more abilities also. That's the concept, is like your characters are now stronger. So I think tier 12, like level 12 is tier 3. So they are now in different proficiency levels. So they should be doing crazier stuff because they are better at it. Like their spellcasting modifiers go up and stuff like that. So that's like the tiers of play. So they will be dealing with more dangerous stuff, but in the encounters where they aren't dealing with that crazy like 3-headed T-Rex that's trying to eat them, and they're dealing with like a group of goblins. Yeah, grab the goblin and put them in a barrel and throw them down the river, because your proficiency bonus will always be there for you. And again, that's the kind of game that you're playing right here. Sorry.
Absolutely. All right.
In a system built around both combat and character customization as its strengths. Why? Because of illusion of choice. Let me give you another example of an issue that I feel lends to this constant repetition. Let's talk about spells, casting magic, and the action economy. Here's probably the biggest lapse in judgment I've had when initially evaluating Pathfinder 2e. Originally, I loved the concept and mechanics presented. And honestly, even with the critique I'm about to give, I still think it's so close to being spectacular. But ultimately, it only compounds our previous issues of illusion of choice and is a significant factor in giving the players a feeling of being forced into a set of actions each turn. If you don't know, the system is simple on the surface. Every spell has a set number of actions that either can or in many cases must be used to cast them. Typically this is 2 actions. So a level 5 banishment spell takes, you guessed it, 2 actions to cast. Additionally, I'm
going to take a moment and say, I appreciate that he is actually explaining this, assuming that the audience doesn't know what it is. Because, yeah, absolutely. If your audience has no clue what the basics of spellcasting is, because it can be quite complex, they're not really going to follow you as well. So, kudos. Well done. I like that.
Yeah.
Spells can be cast with more or less actions, and that will affect how powerful the spell is when it's cast. The best example of this is Magic Missile. If you spend 1 action, you get 1 dart, 2 actions gives you 2 darts, and 3 gives you 3. Go figure. It's beautifully elegant on the surface. But the issue is, no matter how many actions you use to cast Magic Missile or a similar spell, you still spend the exact same spell slot, which, going back to the point I'm driving home in this video, leads to exactly 0 players using the spell without its full set of actions. Anything less than 3 is literally less efficient. And Pathfinder 2nd Edition is all about maximizing and efficiency. The biggest reason...
Alright, so he said something interesting there. And this, I think, maybe was a slip of the power builder maybe in Cody coming out, which was Pathfinder is about about efficiency, maximizing efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think on that statement?
I think kind of from this point in the video, he was, from previously what he was talking about, he was kind of airing out his grievances, and then all of a sudden now we are seeing the min-maxer coming out, the power gamer. Because he literally just said like, oh, this whole game is about efficiency. And I don't know, I would like to have heard how long ago he TPK'd his party versus this video. Like, was it like a week ago and this video is a reaction to his reaction of that? Or if it's like, like 6 months ago, right? And then he had time to dwell on it. Maybe that really messed him up and he's really upset. He was like, if my players were better players, you know, like, but you're right. Like, he just mentioned the whole power gamer system of like, if you're not doing this set of actions, you're not being efficient. You're not contributing to the party.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there are plenty of circumstances where, for example, if I'm currently playing a spellcaster in your campaign. I'm playing the summoner, which is from the Secrets of Magic playtest. And one of the things that we have is, obviously, we've got, technically speaking, an extra action every single round. But I've used so many of these actions to do things that have just been silly or wild. You know, even though it's basically my puppet goes out and bops people in the head. That's all it does, and I run around healing people while it's doing that. Right? That's the effectiveness of it. But we've had plenty of opportunities where, like, yeah, he's disassembled himself and sort of gotten into a better position. Or, you know, in one particular action, my guy's like, cool, I'm going to hand something to another player so that they can do something better while the puppet's dealing with stuff on the other end. There is so many things you can do. And in this situation, even looking at Magic Missile, like, yeah, cool. I'm going to move into a better position and still fire off a Magic Missile. Sure, I'm not getting all the darts that I can out of that spell slot, but it's still useful, because in my opinion, if you deal 100 damage to something that has 10 hit points, right, it's about as effective as something that does 11 damage. And I think a lot of power gamers don't see that. Is 100 damage is equivalent to 11 points of damage against that target, then you are wasting 89 damage, not doing 89 damage. You are wasting it, and I think that's kind of, I don't know. It's just maybe it's a mentality of the anti-power gamer in me. Having seen Cody's series Save or Die, in case you haven't gone to see that, definitely go check those out. There's a bunch of very, very talented GMs and players in that series that all play together. Cody, David Friant, Guy Sklanders, whole bunch of other people, Andrew Armstrong, etc., 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 all get to play together, and you get to see how Cody plays. And I would like you guys to go and check these out and come to your decisions. Do you think that Cody's focus as a role player maybe leans heavily on the efficiency and effectiveness of the game itself, or are we reading too deep into this? What do you guys think? Let us know in the chat.
Season, however, might be the one thing I've talked about with a fiery passion of hatred before: feats. I don't know how I got sucked into forgetting just how much I hated what feats did to the game in Pathfinder 1st Edition, but damn! Even with the feat buckets, there is still a sense of builds. Even with feat buckets, which I've praised in the past as being a better option than traditional feat trees, and I do think it is better than Pathfinder 1st Edition's pure feat trees, ultimately still has more holdover than I originally thought. And you can tell.
I'm just going to take a moment to say I disagree with you. I think feat trees are awesome because I, as a person who likes to character build, like to build towards something, not reach into a bucket of feats and go, yeah, these will do, and then stick them together like a jigsaw puzzle. I prefer feat trees, and I will say it, I prefer prestige classes because it gave my build something to work towards. I dislike the idea that the only thing effective to do is to play one class from start to finish. That multi-classing, that prestige classing and stuff like that sort of died out in Pathfinder. I dislike that. It's why in a lot of my games, I let 3.5 material still be valid with a few minor adjustments. That's me. That's all I wanted to say.
You can absolutely tell that the players are creating synergies between their character options. And I mean, that's not some big secret, nor is it unexpected. I mean, come on. That's the most obvious headline for a newspaper ever. Quote, gamers make good character for game they're playing, end quote. I mean, come on. It's not their fault, and dismissing them as just simply power gamers is a very lazy opinion. But the way that
So, that's defensive, straight up, in my opinion. Yeah, we both agree with that. Stop apologizing. Just say it.
Okay, so there was a video that just came out. I just recently watched it, and it was from Ginny D. She's a cosplayer.
Oh yeah, the one who does the Carol of the Spells.
Yes.
That was
the
so
Carol
cool.
of the Spells.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool.
You know what? I'm actually going to put a link. Everyone who we've mentioned today, I'm going to try and put a link in the description below. Go check out Ginny. Ginny is amazing. I mean, yeah. I've watched that video like 100 times. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's amazing. Her cosplay outfits are crazy. She just did a video where she talked about power gamers and doing the wrong thing but having a good character. And in that video, it was a very defensive video. Not defensive like, oh, all power gamers are evil, blah 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 blah. It was more like, I'm gonna do what makes me happy, And if I'm bad at what I do, just let me be happy. And I think we're now seeing the opposite, or maybe like Cody's reaction video to that video, where he's like, no, power gamers, if you call me a power gamer because I like making my character work perfectly tuned like a car, like a fine-tuned car, then you're dismissing me. And it's kind of funny, we're watching, like, I'm getting to watch like a reaction to a video in a reaction video.
Yeah,
it's very
look, I'm someone who is an accidental power gamer, right? So when I say accidental power gamer, what I mean to say is that I've played so many games that I build well, and the thing is I don't build well in the traditional sense. Let me give you an example. Actually, this is an example of where I've power gamed by accident. So me and another friend of mine, we wanted to create a character build because we saw this pattern in the feats, and we were like, there's no way to actually do this except if you are in a team. So here's what he did. Let's make you my friend, and I will be the character that I build. So we made you a crit fisher, right? You had a rapier, you had sort of keen edge on your weapon, so you had 16 to 20 crit range. So that means roughly 25% or so you would be landing a critical hit. We then gave you butterfly sting, which allowed you to be able to, once you land a crit, to say, don't worry about it, I'm not going to take the crit, but I can pass it on to the next person who attacks it, right? That's the nature of it. Enter my character. Now, my character was a Vital Strike build with a scythe. Now, I only had a times 4 crit, right? Like, that was the nature of a scythe. Scythe's massive damage. Yeah. But the scythe is also the holy weapon of Urgathoa. So I was also a cleric of Urgathoa, and I qualified for the gluttonous feat that came from the divine discipline of being an Urgathoan. Meaning, when I land a strike with a scythe, I can use a swift action equal to a number of times equal to my wisdom to transform a damage I deal into temporary hit points.
Okay.
So I believe you can now see where this pair went. We were at this big Alamo kind of thing, this huge hotel where people were like shooting guns out at our characters. One poor sucker came to the front line, and that was it. Friend walked up, made a single attack, landed a crit, right? As soon as he did, he said, cool, I'm passing it on. My character walked up, landed a critical hit with Vital Strike, which got, all the multipliers, and I ended up with like 70 points of damage that went through. My character, who is a tank build, now had 86 hit points. And I walked into that building, got shot like a ton of times, walked into the building, took all the attacks of opportunity. Everyone was just like, what the hell? I went up to the boss and I grabbed him and I dragged him, because I was actually pretty strong, had a big strength build as well. So dragged him out into the street. And then by the time I was on like 20 hit points left, which was, my temporary hit points were basically done at that point. The crit fisher just went up and went, boink. I landed a crit. I'm going to pass it on. The guy surrendered. He just said, I give up. Right? That was a power build, but it was an accidental power build. I didn't expect it to have that yield when we built it. It was just this fun idea to see what would happen. The character did die, by the way, to all things said and done. But the nature was cooperative. The nature was to have fun and to do different things. I wasn't gonna always land a crit, I wasn't gonna just sit in the back line and wait for that guy to land a crit before I did anything. I was actually an anti-paladin, so I would also gather diseases and start, using them for my advantage. And it was really funny because it was really nice as well. Not gonna share that story. There's another time for this story. But, what I'm saying is, yes, there is definitely a stigma around power builders, 100%, right? You do not need to always think that power builders are out there to wreck your game because they're just going to math you away, right? But the thing is you have to also, as a power builder, understand that, well, yeah, people think of you as negative because there are so many people out there who do play it just for the numbers. They could give two damns about the characters that they're playing, or the personalities, or the world, or the narrative. Right? There are so many of them out there. And if, in the same way that I do, I encourage other power gamers. If you power game, accidental or otherwise, it is your duty to show people that you can have fun and be a part of a fun and engaging game with a character that is power built, right?
Mm-hmm.
Restraint, for example, is never a bad idea. I always keep something in like as a trump card in my back pocket. You know, it's like, yeah, this is my power build trump card. I'll keep it here. It's safe. It's in a little box. And when I need it, if trouble happens, I'll pull it out and it'll be so cool. Not, I will use this as my greeting and my hello and how do you do? And yeah you know. But yeah, that's my thoughts towards, the power building defensiveness. You know, don't defend, accept, and then improve.
Feats still synergize in Pathfinder 2e all do one thing. They push the players towards a set of actions to utilize those synergies. That's it. And when the players don't do the things that their characters are the best at, they are literally purposefully playing suboptimally. AKA, these feats, even from pools and not direct feat trees.
To clarify, it is okay to play suboptimally.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And that, I think, is what a lot of the other reaction videos are about. It's basically getting to this point and going, it's okay to not power build. That Cody's been playing with power builders and stuff like that. But again, doesn't make it less frustrating.
I'm just going to jump in. And when we were converting to the playtest, my group was moving over to the playtest, we were always on the forums. And you know what I noticed was a lot more people wanted the skills. So, you know, we all understand the skills. You have the trained, the expert, the master, and the legendary, right?
Mm.
People wanted those to be way harsher. Like, the community in general for Pathfinder was like, no, they need to be way harsher, because they liked knowing that, like, the things they were good at made them so much
better than someone who wasn't good at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the blacksmith. If I made a blacksmith character, my halfling was a blacksmith, and I dedicated to that. The argument on the forums were always, I should always be 100 times better than the person who even rolled a nat 20. Like, my base score should always be just a million times better than the person who rolls a nat 20.
I think, because I agree with that. I think that's an extreme. But I will show you the other side. If you've played Starfinder, the operative is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. The fact that an operative can very casually keep up with somebody like a mechanic who specializes in engineering, very casually, for me is exactly why there does need to be that difference. There needs to be that kind of bridge, because it's like at a certain point, if you are quote unquote power gaming, right, there is almost never a reason to not choose an operative. Operatives have more skills and even casually can be effective at every single mechanical role. The only thing they can't do is spells, right? And at that stage, it's like, well, big deal. So that was that. I mean, that's kind of, I can see where they're going with it. But I think, making it to the point that there are characters who have skills that are unobtainable also means that to balance that out, you need challenges that are unobtainable. And that creates a forced need for skills or classes and stuff like that. And it will actually pretty much bring back what Cody's saying here as well, which is there has to be an optimal thing to get, because you cannot go into the wilderness. You cannot go dungeon delving without someone with full ranks in perception. Otherwise, you will die, because there's no way anyone else could find it. It's a bit silly. But I like I said, there's such a thing as moderation. Healthy mediums. Okay, guys? That's it. Healthy mediums. All right.
These are creating an illusion of choice for my players, which is why after a year of Pathfinder 2e and 2 sets of characters, I see them taking the same actions over and over, regardless of that variance of circumstances of the combats that they've been engaged in. And all this leads me to one conclusion. I want to quit playing Pathfinder 2e. I don't enjoy it. It doesn't give me that
So I want to just take a moment here. You know how there are those guys who, when they quit Facebook, right, they have to let everyone know they quit Facebook? How much of this is, how much of Cody is this right now, right? Like, I am quitting Pathfinder. It's like, just quit Pathfinder, dude. Like,
Yeah.
Just stop playing it.
It's a bit of a dramatic exit.
Yes, it is. It's just really funny.
Buzz and excitement that I get from playing other games. Now, I want to say something. This was not the video I wanted to write this week. This was not the video that I sat down to write. I wanted to bang out a script for a new Kill Your Party with. I pulled out Tasha's to maybe do some more coverage over there. I had a long conversation, okay, with Dungeon Dudes about doing a collaboration over our disagreement on Healing Word just this past week.
More flexing. And he's trying to get people to relate at this stage to the video to him. I think because you saw that there was that cut between that scene and this one, I think he maybe reviewed it and went, I am very defensive here. I am getting riled up. There's definitely a more of a calmer air in this section, I'm finding. And I think that's because realizing that there's two entirely separate issues here. The first, of course, is the issue of repetition, and the second is the issue of the reason as to why repetition exists in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And that why became very close and very personal, I feel. And that's why you saw the demeanor change. I think when watching this video, or when addressing, like, you know, what your opinion is, remember that Cody's experience definitely is with power gamers. Let's not sugarcoat that. But Cody himself, from what we can observe just in this video, not going to his other videos and having a look at how he plays, because keeping in mind you can do that by going to Save or Die, we can see that there's almost like this revelation of this is what it's like to play with power gamers, right? Doesn't matter what game you're playing. If you're playing in Pathfinder, if you're playing in Dungeons and Dragons, if you're playing in Through the Breach or Talisman or Forbidden Lands, wherever you happen to be playing, power gamers are the same. They don't change. They always look for those optimal paths. Sure, the paths may change, but at the end of the day, that's what they are. This point here is, I didn't want to do this, but I did. Because I'm feeling this way. There's definitely a frustration here, and that's where this video is born from, as a critiquing tool.
And I even pitched an idea to Monty and Kelly about putting some money on the line and turning the collaboration into a bit of a competition for charity. But this is the video that came out. And the only explanation I could think of as to why I literally couldn't get my fingers to type anything else other than this video was because I have such a passion for Pathfinder and even Paizo. And I'm still so disappointed in the direction that 2E took. The system is so crunchy. And the only thing saving us from the tedium of that crunch is good bones for combat. But after giving a year of my life to this game, I feel like even the combat has begun to let me down. And let me get ahead of the terrible comments that are going to be dismissive, saying, well, Cody, Pathfinder is a system all about crunch. You just want to tell stories. Or
hold up. Hold up. Do you believe that statement?
So
I feel like we just went over like how crunchy Cody is.
I'm gonna say something. I'm really glad I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Because I saw this last night. I was on my drive home and I listened to YouTube, and this came up, and I like listening to Cody. I know like some people love him, some people dislike his stuff. It happens to everyone. If you have your opinions, you're never going to get 100%. At this point, I was furious with this video. And I just wanted to start yelling. Like, if I had done a reaction video, it would have just been me with the worst New York accent just swearing. And I'm glad I sat on it. I wasn't gonna do a reaction, and I'm glad you're here, and because you gave direction, and that was wonderful. And Cody likes crunch. Does this still feel like first edition? No. Was there great things in first edition? Yes. Are there great things in second edition? Yes. Are there bad things in both? Yes. But I don't think I've ever heard anyone come forward and be like, nope, Pathfinder's only about crunch. If you like stories, go play something else.
Yeah, right. I mean, look.
Never
I
heard
mean,
that.
you and I are both Pathfinder players. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
We like other systems. Sure, we play. Like, I mean, everyone knows I've played tons of other systems, right? I think people often confuse crunch with glut, right?
Yeah.
There is definitely a rules glut in Pathfinder First Edition and even 3.5, right? What a glut is compared to what crunch is glut. It means that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of options and variations and combinations and things for you to use, right? That was one of the reasons why Dungeons and Dragons went from 3.0 to 3.5 and then to 4th ed. For whatever God knows reason, but it was because there was just so much stuff between all the books and the magazines and things. Eventually, approaching Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 meant looking at freaking a wall of stuff. And if you had feats, somebody could come to your table and say, yes, no, I found a feat from Dragon Magazine issue 897, and it says this. Oh, but there's an errata that's over here in this book here that republishes that feat, and it was published a year later. My point is, that is glut, not crunch. Crunch, for me, is when rules stack upon rules, stack upon rules, stack upon rules, creating what you would imagine would be a crunch when you try to do something, because there are multiple layers, there's multiple things happening. I don't think Pathfinder First or Second Edition has that level of crunch. Yes, it is crunchy. Let me rephrase. There is a rule for frickin' everything. In fact, I remember very distinctly picking up horror adventures in Pathfinder First Edition and going, there are rules for burning at the stake. Didn't think they were needed, but here they are. Here's rules for being buried alive. Fantastic. I don't know when I'll need that, but it's good to know they're here, right? Right. So that is the idea of crunch. So there is some crunch to it, but it is not defined by crunch. It is defined by options, and the illusion of choice is a very strong thing to throw out against him. And I don't disagree with Cody on that. I think there is fundamentally an illusion of choice. Absolutely. You've seen it. The fact that your ranger fell into the repetition. The fact that I'm fairly sure most power gamers would, but I could also imagine this narrative: a power gamer who went into Pathfinder First Edition, which could not only power game but power game in so many different ways because of the glut that existed in the rules. They could go over so many different avenues. A barbarian, for example, who maximizes their strength so they could tear a tower apart better than they could tear apart a phone book. You have another individual over here who can end up shooting a fly's backside from like 1,000 miles away. You could have power-built characters, right? But they were all different, all versatile. In Second Edition, as, of course, it hasn't been out as long, and there is not a glut in the system yet, or at least as much of one. When you power build, there aren't that many options. They haven't been made yet. So in this instance, I believe Cody is both correct, but I think he misses the mark just only very, very narrowly in to say that there is, of course, an illusion of choice, but it's not the crunch that defines this. It's not the power building that defines this. It's not the ability to make the most optimal characters that defines this. It is the ability to make characters that are unique, but still effective and still can be optimized. You could have a character and go, I'm going to make a character who is sickly and old and withered, and I'm going to tank my constitution. And everyone looks at you like, what? No, whoa, wait. What do you mean you want to tank your constitution? Yeah, I want to sit there and I want to be dying of like AIDS and just, right? But at the same time, I'm a wizard, right? Yeah. Great, fantastic. It's an interesting character. You could still maximize the crap out of that wizard, right? And you could play whatever kind of character you want. But in First Edition, that meant a whole different thing, because you could make a million different wizards that did that. In Second Ed, it's maybe 2 or 3. That's it, So yeah, that's how I feel about that. How about you, Jared?
I concur. I think Second Ed, like you said, there is a difference between those two terms, and a lot of people need to realize that. So I think it's just he's dealing with power gamers. He's dealing with probably the frustration all DMs go through. Sorry if I'm looking away because I'm now internally
Thinking.
I'm just really thinking about like what's going on here and like everything that you said, and it was really I think he is dealing with power gamers, and he realized, you know, he himself is a power gamer, and it's maybe like a coming to light kind of situation at this point.
So what we need really is more versatility for power gamers.
Yes,
That's what Cody wants in this game.
Yeah.
In second edition, I want to be able to power game in 5 or 6 different ways with each of the different classes. So that I have a bunch of very powerful things I can do at any given time without sacrificing my effectiveness.
Yeah. And you know what hysterical is I sit here critiquing or saying, oh, he's a power gamer, XYZ. On my YouTube channel, one of the things I do is I do something called Power Up, where we literally make, yeah, exactly. I know everyone just heard it in their head, where we literally take one concept and we make broken characters, like min-max characters to do those one things really, really well. So I'm a power gamer. I'll tell you right out, I'm a power gamer.
You know, back when first edition was still doing stuff, I actually had a show that I wanted to plug back when I was still doing stuff with Guy on his channel. We called it the Infernodrome. And what we would do is we would create a series of power-built characters, throw them into an arena, and then have a whole bunch of like Twitch things for people to add in. So you could throw in like goblins with bombs strapped to them. You could
cool.
change the actual level as well with donations and stuff. And we would actually ask people from around the world to create these characters, and me and Guy would run them through a combat together.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool idea. But yeah, no, look, theory build and theory craft is so much fun, right? Power building is not just this big negative thing. It just gets often put that way, and it doesn't need to be. It really doesn't.
No.
All right, let's keep going here.
Or what did you expect? Paizo makes crunchy games. To which I'll say this. If you think that all Pathfinder First Edition cared about was the crunch, that tells me you don't know your history in role-playing games. When Wizards left 3.5 behind for 4th edition and caused all that drama with their licensing for their third-party companies, Paizo didn't just make a crunchy 3.5, it did the opposite. It literally did the opposite of that. It simplified the game, even if only a tiny bit. It made the game easier and faster with changes to spot and listen and how initial skills were handled. And when you get feats, while at the same time still staying close enough to 3.5 to allow people to at least continue using their old book collections.
That is one of the most correct things Cody has said this whole video. Not only is there nothing I could say to countermand that, I will say this. That is one of the big reasons why I have not completely converted to 2nd edition Pathfinder, right? Is exactly that. Is Pathfinder 2nd edition, in my mind, is not simpler than Pathfinder 1st edition. One, because not only do I have the experience and the backlog of information from the early 2000s, from 3.5, all the way through to now with all the Pathfinder materials, but little things like being aware of where all the feats are and what they all are capable of is more taxing for me than being able to sort of go through and say, cool, I'm building a dwarf at level 1. This is the only time I'll ever need to look at these skills and powers. I pick what I want, and that's it. You know, the fact that that changes as you level and you progress, the fact that skills do the same thing, the fact that all these other things do the same thing, that's not an easier system of leveling up. It is a more versatile system because it effectively breaks down all classes, races, and abilities into the barest essential nuts and bolts to be assembled, right? But as Cody's saying, that's not simpler. It looks it kind of on the surface, but beneath it's more complicated. And it's definitely a lot more complicated when you also consider the fact that Pathfinder Unchained already exists in Pathfinder 1st edition. So things like the 3-action economy and stuff, or even piecemeal armor and stuff, these are rules that already existed in Pathfinder 1st edition and can easily be thrown back in, right? if I had to put my salt on something, I would say that all of the things that Cody is saying here are right, and I would 100% look at, rather than going into second edition or continuing second edition, is to play a first edition game that utilizes the strengths of second edition and just leaves all the other crap behind, right? Like the action economy. Keep the action economy, you know. Keep the idea of skills proficiency, you know what I mean? Like, you have a proficiency gauge that just levels up as is. Get rid of the idea of rolling hit points. Everyone has generated hit points based on whatever class they've got, and they just get whatever. These things are what I think would make the best Pathfinder game. That's me. That's my thought. Jared?
I like second edition.
No, we're going to keep going. Okay.
And just because I find this fascinating, the snapshot in time when Pathfinder was the #1 selling game in the world, and it had supplanted Dungeons and Dragons, at that moment, Pathfinder was the least complicated version of D&D available on the market. It was easier to understand than 4th edition, and while it sold more books than anything else. And it never fell out of that top spot until 5th edition was released in 2014, which then became the easiest version of D&D to play and reclaimed the #1 spot. And I have a lot more to say on this game. I have a lot more I want to say about the structure of the adventure paths and the way that format clearly affects how Paizo presents their game. I want to talk about how the core combat system with their traits feeds into illusion of choice because their effects are way too small. I want to talk about how the trait system makes the game basically unplayable if Pathfinder 2e isn't the only game you play every week without, like, condition cards. I want to talk about the pros and cons of attacks of opportunity now that I've had an entire year under my belt with it, but I'm not going to. At least not in this video. At this point in my script, I was already on page 4, so I'll leave those topics for another day. What I will say is this. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is still absolutely a game that I could and would recommend to certain groups as their go-to game system. It has a lot to offer. The Paizo's team is still very passionate about not only their game, but this style of role-playing games, and it shows. Their bestiaries and monster design are excellent. I genuinely still enjoy their Lost Legends line as well. I've got a few of those books sitting on.
So now at this point is the damage control.
Yep.
It's basically saying, like, yes, it is suitable for some people, if not me. I think it's a good move. I think it makes sense. Again, I think cutting it off entirely is just a flourish. You know what I mean? It's very dramatic. It's very loud. It created a video that's made tons of people bring up and talk about this topic, including, of course, us. But I think more importantly, I think it's important to remember that the game of Pathfinder 2nd Edition has its place in the world as it is right now. There is still always going to be people who pine for the older editions, like myself. And this is where me and Jared, this is actually why me and Jared make this video and have made a few others. Jared is firmly in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition camp. I am one of those people who cannot take my back foot out of 1st edition. I love it too much. I really do. And in my opinion, Pathfinder 2nd Edition was only appealing to me because I considered it a completely new game. And that is how I play it as. If I compare Pathfinder 2nd Edition to 1st Edition, yeah, I would definitely jump over a hill to play a 1st Edition game. But 2nd Edition, I'd need the right GM, I'd need the right person, I'd need someone who is very familiar with stuff, like, of course, Jared, to really get me into that game. I would not necessarily recommend it for someone who is starting out brand new, never roleplay before, there's definitely some crowds that won't mesh with it. But, hey, if you like the crunch, if you love the Pathfinder story, if you are invested in just the adventures that the Paizo have released, like being able to get into regular games, right? Then yeah, I mean, look, D&D releases like Ghosts of Saltmarsh and Descent to Avernus, but there's years between that. every month you've got like 2 or 3 adventures coming out from Paizo, right? So you are never starved for content when you go for that. And I think that's the biggest strength and the biggest thing that people should look at.
I agree. I like Pathfinder Second Edition. Michael likes First Edition, and I like you said, Cody is doing a lot of damage control right now. He basically was just like, I'm not playing Pathfinder, but I'm going to make videos about it. So keep looking at my channel for the Pathfinder videos. How can I say this? I always recommend people try something new because you're never going to know if you don't like it. I played Pathfinder 1E for many, many years. Then I hopped over to 5th edition. I played 4th edition like 3 times. It wasn't my cup of tea. I hopped over the 5th edition, and I thought 5th edition was the bee's knees, as the kids are saying now. And after I got burnt out, like legitimately, I got burnt out of 5th edition. And then I wasn't doing anything. I was running it at my local game store for just Adventurers League and teaching new players to come in, and I was super bored with it. And I could have made one of these videos that Cody's doing where like 5th edition is not for me, XYZ. And then 2nd edition came out and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. The action economy got me and so forth. I still play 5th edition. I run 5th edition campaigns. I do all that jazz. I think 5th edition's the advantage disadvantage is the greatest system currently. There's nothing better than that. I think I would love to mesh them together somehow, to do like some kind of Frankenstein, work it in, figure it out.
I'm going to be the guy that says it. Just do it.
Yeah,
that's seriously what I do. I Frankenstein them. I basically go, I love advantage and disadvantage. And I'll make it very clear to my players, like straight up, that is the whole purposes of hero points in my thing, is I will give you an advantage on something as opposed to giving you a flat, static, numerical value or roll. I think it's just much easier that way. If you do not like that, then you're welcome to play at another table. But this is just how I enjoy the game. It's how I enjoy playing. I take the best elements of the things I love and I use it. Because that's what role-playing games are all about, in my opinion. It's about playing a game with people that you love, with people that you want to play with, and in a way that's just going to focus on the fun and enjoyment of everyone. Now, if some people need to follow rules as written to the letter of the law in order to have fun, that's also great, you know. And if you can't appreciate the rules that I insert, then, you know, maybe the table that I have is not the one for you. But a lot of people, you know, I mean, I don't think I've ever had someone turn around and say, oh, I hate the fact that you've inserted this rule. How dare you, you know, deny me my blah, blah, blah. You know, it's never that. It's like, well, it's either that or you can have a +2. And then, you know, they're like, oh, I know, I want a second roll because statistically it's better. I'm like,
Statistically, you're a power gamer now. Statistically, it's better.
Yep. So there's that. All right. We got 4 more minutes left in this video. Let's see if we can finish it in 3 minutes.
On my shelf. Their setting is really starting to grow on me. If your group gets together for one-shots on occasion and just wants to dungeon crawl through a labyrinth of a dungeon, seriously play this game. There is nothing better on the market, in my opinion. If you don't...
So I'm going to throw in, if you're looking to dungeon crawl, Paizo, we were talking about, they always release stuff. Abomination Vault is a massive dungeon crawl. It's the new one coming out very soon. It's only $3. So he's right. Dungeon crawl right there. And it's brand new, coming out. Sorry.
Fantastic. Did you just plug Paizo in this video? Are they paying you? Where's my cut?
They're not paying me. I wish.
Where's my cut? Eric Mona, you saw it. He's plugged you, right? Now, whatever he gets, I get half. Okay? Just...
don't care that your character does the same thing over and over in combat because you're just getting together with friends over a few beers to play and you really want to feel like you're just kicking a monster's ass. Well, then guess what? Play this game. If you enjoy a style of gameplay where your game master never talks in first person because you guys all find that super cheesy, play this game. I mean it on that last one, by the way. If you want to look down and say to your game master, I want to use a diplomacy check to make an impression, so I want to engage with the NPC in dialogue for at least 1 minute, and I want to make this check against his will DC to improve his attitude towards us by 1 step on a success or 2 steps on a critical, as listed on page 246 in the core rulebook, then you should play Pathfinder 2e. I'm not saying Pathfinder 2e isn't for everyone. Just that for the time being, at least, it's not for me. I'm not even saying I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has more interesting combat. In fact, if I had to, I would probably call it a draw.
I would like to just take a moment here and say Cody is entitled to his opinion. Absolutely. And while there are a lot of people out there who are currently poo-pooing and arguing and throwing some stuff out there, I want you guys to remember that games are for everyone, and everyone has the right to choose whatever system they enjoy. So yes, and this is more of a message to people out there rather than Cody. It's fine. It is okay that Cody, an individual who is very influential, dislikes something that you like. It's okay. You will be fine. If you feel like you won't be fine, go grab a glass of water. Hydration is very important, and it's important especially in these times to ensure that we remain healthy, hydrated, and happy through these dark and tumultuous eras.
The thing is, though, if my choice is between a slightly unsatisfying combat system that feels repetitive and another slightly unsatisfying combat system that feels repetitive, and those are my two choices, then I'm going to pick the one that's less complicated, so at least I have more time to roleplay, which I also enjoy.
Last thing, there are more than 2 role-playing games. For the love of all things Gygax, there are more than 2 games in the world, okay? I am about to embark on a Talisman game, which uses D6s. I'm about to embark on Forbidden Lands. I'm hitting up a Through the Breach game next week, right? There are tons and tons and tons of game systems out there that have a lot of fun aspects to it. In this case, Cody, I know that we like to play the games that are, of course, going to bring in lots of views and bring in lots of things, and nothing is going to do that more than Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons, but that's not your only choices, and you hopefully can reach out and find and explore some of these more smaller and indie games out there. I hope that you eventually find the game that will eventually make you very happy. Jared?
Oh, we're done? I can't see the bars behind me.
Oh, yeah, I can't see it either. It's not quite done.
I was really nervous to do this video this week, and I just want to say thank you to all the people who reached out to me on Twitter to convince me to go ahead and pull the trigger on making a critique video, even for a company that I love as much as Paizo. You know, there's a history when you do a really strong critique for companies that sort of, work with you and that you sort of are kind of reliant on of that not going 100% great. Look at the auto industry. Look at the TTRPG industry. Look at, Linus and Jay's 2 cents on their recent videos. So thank you guys for convincing me to do it. At the end of the day, even though I wish Paizo well, this is a video that I wanted to make. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to pass it over to you guys. What do you guys think? For those of you who have played Pathfinder 2e, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? For those of you that don't have a lot of experience in Pathfinder, but you play a lot of D&D and you just watch my channel because you thought this might be interesting, how do you guys feel about 5e's combat? Do you feel like the things I talked about for Pathfinder are equally applicable to D&D 5e? Let me know in the comments section down below. I want to give a massive thank you to all the...
Okay, so we're going to end there because if you want to go and watch Cody's thank yous, you can go watch Cody's thank yous.
Yeah, man.
So in a nutshell, to answer that question that Cody presented, like how do you find combat in Dungeons & Dragons 5th Ed? Look, in the context of this video, it is going to be exactly the same as Pathfinder. If you have the exact same group of people playing in Pathfinder and having problems with things like min-maxing and only playing efficiently, you're going to have the same problems in Dungeons & Dragons. What it takes is for you to be creative, to be open-minded, and to use not only the statistics on your page, but the world created by your GM in order to make any combat fun, versatile, and vibrant.
I agree. I 100% agree. If I don't like 5th edition combat. I think it's boring and repetitive, which is exactly what Cody is saying here about Pathfinder 2nd edition. Cody is speaking his truth. And I think, like you said before, don't jump down his neck. Everyone is being mad that he's saying something, and remember, this isn't going to break anyone. You know, tomorrow Paizo's not packing up shop because Cody made a negative critique of them. They're gonna say, okay, cool. I think they did say, okay, cool. I think Cody is doing what's right for him. I will play 2nd edition. Michael will clearly do what's wrong and play 1st edition.
I will play everything.
He will play everything. And I'm dying to learn Numenaria, which is by Monty Cook, right?
Monty Cook, yeah. You know what? I've played that a couple of times. I've got to say, it is fun, but the opportunities just never come up. So if Monty Cook, if you happen to watch my channel, which, first of all, oh my God. Secondly, if you ever need someone to spearhead a couple of Numenera games, let me know. I'll totally be down to do some of that. Again, performer, content creator, performer. Anyway, I would like to, of course, thank Jared for stopping by today and having this big chat with us. Again, I think it's important to realize that when you look at a reaction, what you are doing is you are simply responding as a knee-jerk motion towards what is being said. I think that is grossly simplifying what is being said here, and I hope that after watching this movie-length freaking thing that we've done, right, that you'll have a good understanding of not only what Cody's been saying, but also the context that surround everything he's been saying in a lot more detail. If you do have any questions or anything you'd like more clarification for, leave a comment below and let us know. I will likely break this video up into 2 pieces because of how long it is. So if you do make it all the way to the end, first of all, thank you for watching. And as always, come visit my channel here on YouTube. Go visit my DeadAussieGamer live channel to see some live plays where we feature DM Jared, who runs our Runelord Legacy game, which is our Pathfinder 2nd edition game. And you can also find Jared over on his Facebook, his Twitch, his Twitter, all of which is Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained, or twitch.tv NVNG. You can go and watch him do a whole bunch of very, very cool and awesome stuff. All the links will be in the description below. Thank you so much for listening, and a very, very special thank you to Cody from Taking 20 for giving us the inspiration to make this video, and a very special thank you to, of course, some of our other friends who were mentioned in this video. We will again put their links in the description below for you to check out as well. Stay safe, stay happy, stay warm. Until next time, as always, game hard or die trying. Bye, everyone!
Bye.